They call it the honor walk. When someone in the hospital has died and chosen to donate their organs, a quiet ritual takes place. It's not listed on the medical charts, not coded into insurance, not part of any formal treatment plan, but it's real. It's real. And if you've ever witnessed one, it stays with you. They call it the honor walk. When someone in the hospital has died and chosen to donate their organs, a quiet ritual takes place. It's not listed on the medical charts, not coded into insurance, not part of any formal treatment plan, but it's real. And if you've ever witnessed one, it stays with you. The donor, usually unconscious, often still hooked to machines, is wheeled on a gurney from their room to the operating suite, where surgeons will recover their organs for transplant. But before that final procedure, something holy happens. Staff members stop what they're doing. Doctors, nurses, janitors, administrators, visitors, people who don't even know the patient, line the hallway. Some place their hands over their hearts. Others bow their heads. No one speaks. No one moves. They just stand there in silence, bearing witness. They aren't saving a life in that moment. They aren't donating anything. They aren't performing the procedures. They are simply showing up to honor someone else's final act of giving. And in that silence, you can feel everything: grief, gratitude, awe, the weight of what it means to offer life even in death. That moment has stayed with me because it reminds me that not every meaningful role is active. Not every good deed belongs to the person doing the doing. Sometimes you're not the one in the fire or the spotlight or the story. Sometimes you're the one standing in the hallway, letting the moment wash over you, letting it break your heart a little, letting it matter. And that is not nothing. That too is a form of participation. Today's episode is about that quiet power, the act of bearing witness, of staying emotionally present in the face of courage, sacrifice, injustice, love, loss, whatever it may be. It's not flashy. It doesn't trend. It doesn't come with applause or awards, but it matters psychologically, spiritually, even morally, because to bear witness is to say, I see this, I feel this, I will not look away. So if you've ever felt like you're not doing enough, if you've ever felt small next to someone else's bravery, if you've ever felt the ache of wanting to help, but being unable to, this conversation is for you. Let's talk about the ones who don't do the saving, but who still choose to show up.
Hello and welcome to The Psychology of Us with Professor RJ Starr, where we explore the mind's influence on life, relationships, and society. RJ Starr is an existential psychologist, professor, and author dedicated to exploring the core challenges of human existence, how we find meaning, embrace responsibility, and navigate life's challenges. Known for a thought-provoking yet accessible approach, RJ inspires listeners to cultivate self-awareness, emotional intelligence, authenticity, and purpose. This podcast is designed for all psychology enthusiasts, practitioners, students, and anyone curious about why we think, feel, and behave the way we do. Each episode unpacks theories, explores complex questions, and offers insights that deepen understanding of the human experience. So settle in, stay curious, and discover the psychology of us.
We often talk about helping as something active, lending a hand, stepping up, doing something. And that's important, of course. The world needs action. But not every moment calls for intervention. Some moments call for presence. To bear witness is to stay emotionally and consciously present in the face of something significant. It might be someone else's grief. It might be someone's bravery. It might be beauty or injustice or an act of profound humanity. But whatever it is, you don't turn away. You don't numb out. You don't rush past it to get to the next thing. You stay with it. And in doing so, you allow yourself to feel it, not for entertainment, not for performance, but for the sake of honoring what's real. We live in a culture that moves fast and rewards visibility. If you didn't post it, did it really happen? If you weren't on the front lines, did you even contribute? There's a kind of subtle dismissal that happens when our only metric for value is action. Quiet presence often goes unseen. Emotional labor, especially the internal kind, is rarely acknowledged, but that doesn't make it unimportant. Think about how healing it is when someone listens to you, really listens. They don't interrupt. They don't jump in with advice. They just hold the space. You feel seen, not fixed, not managed, but seen. That's bearing witness. Or think about art, a painting, a piece of music, a dance. You don't need to analyze it or justify it. You just have to sit with it. Let it move through you. Let it change you. That's also bearing witness. In psychology, we know that bearing witness is part of how we process trauma. It's how we metabolize pain. Survivors of all kinds, from abuse to war to illness, often say the same thing. What helped most was someone being there, someone seeing me, someone not looking away. Bearing witness gives shape to experience. It confirms that the pain was real, that the moment mattered, that you weren't alone. And that matters even when you're not the one in pain. When someone else is doing something courageous or difficult or beautiful, your attention gives it dignity. It says, I saw you do that. It wasn't invisible. You're not alone in it. There's a story from Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel that I often think about. He said that the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference, not feeling anything, not noticing, not caring enough to witness. When we witness something, especially something difficult, we push back against that indifference. We say, this affected me. This left a mark. This mattered. And it's not always easy. Bearing witness means opening yourself up to feelings you may not want to feel. Helplessness, sadness, awe, even guilt. But that's part of what makes it sacred. It's not about comfort. It's about reverence, about allowing someone else's experience, someone else's moment to live in your memory, to echo inside you, to maybe even shape the way you move through the world after that. One of the reasons people avoid bearing witness is because it's vulnerable. It feels like too much, or it reminds them of their own inaction. But here's the truth. Witnessing doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less than the person who took action. It simply means you chose to stay emotionally present instead of dissociating, distracting, or disappearing. And in that staying, something powerful happens. You become part of the memory, part of the honoring, part of the legacy of that moment. You don't have to rescue the animal, but if you watched someone else do it with tears in your eyes and let it change you, something good was still passed on. You don't have to speak at the funeral, but if you stood in the back with your hand over your heart and remembered everything they meant to you, your presence still mattered. You don't have to take center stage, but if you allowed yourself to feel something fully and honor it with your attention, then you helped carry the weight of what it meant. That's what it means to bear witness. There are few things more humbling than standing in the hallway of a hospital during an honor walk. You don't know the person on the stretcher. You don't know their family. You don't know who will receive their heart or their liver or their lungs. And yet something in you understands that this moment isn't ordinary. It isn't just procedural. It usually begins with an overhead announcement. Quiet, respectful, just a few words. There will be an honor walk in 5 minutes. People begin to gather. Nurses step away from their computers. Technicians leave their stations. Visitors who were just getting coffee stand still. No one needs instructions. They already know what to do. They line the hall. They make space for something sacred to pass through. The gurney comes slowly, draped in a blanket, machines beeping softly. Sometimes family members walk behind it. Sometimes a favorite song plays, chosen by loved ones as a final act of meaning. You don't ask questions. You don't fill the silence. You just feel it. And that's the part that always gets me. It's not performative. It's not choreographed. It's not even widely known. It's just humans, people, standing still, refusing to let something beautiful go unacknowledged. In those moments, bearing witness becomes a collective act. You are not fixing anything. You are not saving anyone. You are simply agreeing, without saying a word, that this matters. And for many people in that hallway, it leaves a lasting imprint because it speaks to something deeply human. The need to honor what is too big for words. The need to pause for something greater than ourselves. The need to participate in dignity, even when we don't fully understand the cost. From a psychological standpoint, rituals like the honor walk serve as containers for emotion. They help people process the enormity of what's happening without requiring them to intellectualize it. The silence itself becomes a holding space for grief, awe, and gratitude. It allows people to witness a transition, not just of organs, but of meaning. Because let's be honest, hospital settings are often full of chaos. Alarms going off, schedules to meet, pressure from all sides. And yet the honor walk disrupts that. It slows everything down. It invites presence. And that disruption is important because it reminds us that even in high-functioning systems, where bodies and outcomes are the focus, humanity still matters. For the families of donors, the honor walk is often remembered as one of the most meaningful parts of the experience. Not because anyone said the perfect thing, but because people showed up, strangers, coworkers, people in scrubs and name badges, people who didn't know their loved one, but who stood there anyway, quietly, respectfully, holding the space. That kind of witnessing affirms something profound. Your person mattered. Their final act mattered. And you're not alone in carrying this. And for the hospital staff, many of whom work long hours and see hard things every day, the honor walk becomes a way to reconnect to purpose. It restores the emotional thread that can sometimes get lost in the routine. It says, don't forget why you're here. Don't forget the weight of what we do. Don't forget the lives that continue. What's striking is that these moments don't require anyone to do anything in the traditional sense. No one has to give a speech. No one has to solve a problem. They just have to be there. And being there is enough. This is the essence of bearing witness. It's not about being the most qualified or being the most emotionally articulate. It's not about getting credit. It's about presence, reverence. It's about letting yourself be emotionally affected without needing to redirect the spotlight. We don't often teach people how to do this. We teach them how to respond, how to manage, how to cope, but we don't spend much time on how to stand still and let the moment in. And yet, these are the moments that make us more human. There is a thread that runs through all these moments, and that thread is witnessing. So when we speak about the honor walk, we're not just talking about a hospital ritual. We're talking about what it means to honor someone else's courage. We're talking about what it means to hold space for life, for death, for sacrifice, and for transition. We're talking about the sacred, shared act of saying, I see this. I will not rush past it. This matters. And in that stillness, something profound is passed on, a kind of invisible torch, not of action, but of acknowledgement, not of doing, but of being with. That's why we bear witness. That's why it stays with us. In a world that constantly asks, "What did you do?" bearing witness can feel like not enough. You watched, you listened, you felt something deeply, but you didn't act. And because of that, you might question whether your presence had any value at all. But I want to challenge that idea, because being present with intention and allowing yourself to be moved is a deeply human contribution, and it's more powerful than we often realize. To witness something is to say, "This happened, I saw it, I will carry it." And that alone can shape the emotional reality of the moment. That alone can be a counterforce to indifference, to invisibility, or to the silence that so often swallows truth. Psychologically, we know this matters. In trauma recovery, one of the most important ingredients is validation. Someone being there, someone acknowledging what happened, someone who doesn't try to fix it, spin it, or deny it. Just a presence that says, "Yes, I believe you. I see the weight of it." When a person's suffering goes unseen, it can leave them feeling like the pain didn't count, that it disappeared into a void. But when there's a witness, someone grounded and emotionally present, there's a bridge back to dignity. The wound may not be healed, but it has been recognized, and recognition changes everything. The same is true in moments of heroism or kindness. We often assume that good acts speak for themselves, but they don't. People need to be seen, especially in a world that moves fast and forgets quickly. Bearing witness isn't just about watching. It's about letting someone else's humanity reach you and honoring it by remembering, retelling, and allowing that what you witnessed to shape you, to mold you, to change you. Culturally, we are increasingly becoming spectators, scrolling through suffering and celebration alike, numbed by the sheer volume of content. But bearing witness isn't about scrolling. It's not passive consumption. It's active presence. It's looking at something and letting it land in your chest. It's refusing to dismiss something because it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. And here's the difference. A spectator consumes. A witness participates. Even without taking physical action, a witness helps preserve meaning. They ensure that the moment doesn't dissolve into the blur of noise. They become a steward of the memory. You've probably felt this in your own life. Think about the last time you cried in front of someone and they didn't try to fix it. They just stayed with you. Or think about how it felt when someone noticed your effort without you having to point it out. Think about the stories you've told again and again, not because they're dramatic, but because someone was there to remember them with you. That's the work of witnessing. It's deeply relational. It gives emotional structure to the things we carry. Even historically, some of the most powerful acts of resistance have come not from overthrowing systems, but from refusing to look away, from documenting, remembering, naming what happened. Survivors, journalists, photographers, friends, people who bore witness not to win, not to solve, but to say, "We will not forget. This mattered." Injustice thrives in silence. Suffering deepens in isolation. But witnessing breaks the silence. It pulls things out of the shadows. Of course, witnessing isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it makes you feel helpless, or guilty, or overwhelmed. And it's tempting to look away, to say, "I can't do anything, so I shouldn't get involved emotionally either." But that's a false dichotomy. You don't need to collapse under the weight of something in order to honor it. You just need to stay present, to stay awake, to stay soft enough to feel it and steady enough not to run from it. One of the most damaging myths in our culture is that if you didn't fix it, it doesn't count. That unless you were the one to act, your feelings are irrelevant. But that's not how human beings work. That's not how meaning is formed. Emotions are participation. Attention is a form of contribution. And staying present when it would be easier to disconnect is a kind of internal bravery. Witnessing matters because people want to be known, not as hashtags or headlines or statistics, but as whole human beings. And when you witness someone's courage or heartbreak or effort, and you allow it to move you, you're saying, you are not invisible here. You are not alone. And that has ripple effects because the person who feels seen is more likely to keep going, to keep helping, to keep believing that the world is not indifferent. And the person who bore witness is more likely to respond next time with greater empathy, greater awareness, maybe even with action, because now it's personal. That's how we carry each other forward. That's how moments become stories, and stories become culture, and culture becomes change. So if you've ever stood on the sidelines and felt like a ghost in someone else's story, this is your reminder. You weren't absent. You were there. And that matters. You don't have to be the one who holds the torch, but if you reflect its light and let it change how you see the world, then the flame doesn't die with the moment. It continues through you. Bearing witness is not the opposite of action. It's what makes action mean something. Not everyone rushes toward the burning building. Not everyone can take the call, show up for the protest, donate the money, or say the words that need to be said. And that truth can carry a quiet shame. We don't always talk about this part. What it feels like to want to do something meaningful, to wish you could step in, but to find yourself stuck, paralyzed, or just unable. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's trauma. Maybe it's circumstance. But for whatever reason, you didn't act. And now you're left wondering whether you failed. But let's slow that down. There are many reasons people can't or don't act in the ways they wish they could. And not all of them are moral failings. Sometimes the person who doesn't step in is burned out from giving too much for too long. Sometimes they've been through so much themselves, they're barely holding it together. Sometimes they're scared because action comes with risk. Sometimes they feel small, unsure, unqualified. And sometimes they just freeze. That doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean they're selfish. It means they're human. We have this unspoken belief that if we don't jump in, we're spectators. That if we don't intervene, we're useless. But not everyone can take the heroic path, and not every role in a meaningful moment has to be active to be real. You see, there's a difference between absence and stillness, and sometimes stillness is necessary. Let's talk about the person who watches someone collapse in public but can't move. Their nervous system shuts down. Their training disappears. They're flooded with fear or confusion or helplessness. And they might carry that moment with them for years, replaying it, punishing themselves for it. But sometimes the first step isn't action, it's witnessing. It's staying with what happened, letting it teach you, letting it change you, letting it live in you in a way that makes you more present the next time. Or the person who hears about a friend's loss but doesn't reach out because they don't know what to say, or they're afraid they'll make it worse. So they say nothing, and later they feel like they failed. But silence isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's fear in disguise. And the work isn't to pretend the fear isn't there. It's to stay with what the fear is trying to protect. You may not have said anything, but did it affect you? Did you carry it? Did you cry for them in private? Did you regret not saying something? Because if you felt it, you were participating. And here's where bearing witness becomes more than passive observation. It becomes a quiet form of moral attunement. You stay emotionally connected to the event. You didn't numb it. You didn't erase it. You didn't rush to justify it or forget it. You felt it. And that matters. Sometimes we witness things that shake us, not because we're detached, but because we're deeply sensitive, because we care so much that we become overwhelmed. And when we push people like that to act before they're ready, or shame them for being paralyzed, we lose something beautiful. We lose their capacity to feel fully, to metabolize moments instead of react to them, to carry meaning rather than rush past it. Not acting isn't always cowardice. Sometimes it's respect. Sometimes it's reverence. Sometimes it's a nervous system doing the best it can. And sometimes it's fear. But fear too can be a teacher if you're willing to sit with it. Let's be clear. I'm not saying action isn't important. There are moments when we must speak up, step in, disrupt harm. But I'm also saying we shouldn't confuse stillness with apathy. If you're someone who watched something happen and did nothing, this isn't about letting you off the hook. It's about inviting you to stay close to what you saw, to feel the weight of it, and to honor it by allowing it to transform something in you. That too is accountability. That too is engagement. And sometimes that's what leads to action later. Action that's deeper, more grounded, more honest, not performative, not reactive, but integrated. Because when you bear witness long enough, something changes. Not in your Instagram story, not on your resume, but in your nervous system, in your relationships, in your ethics, in the way you move through the world. That's what we're talking about here. A form of presence that isn't flashy, a kind of participation that doesn't have a spotlight, a role that doesn't always come with credit or praise, but that still has meaning. So if you felt stuck, scared, ashamed, or sidelined, if you wished you could have done more, if you've spent years carrying the memory of a moment that you did not step into, please hear me. You're not disqualified from being part of something good. The question is not always, what did you do? Sometimes it's, what did you stay present for? What did you let reach your heart? What didn't you look away from? There's a certain humility in witnessing. You're not the hero. You're not the savior. You're not even the one telling the story. You're just holding part of it, quietly, carefully, without asking for applause. But make no mistake, what you're doing matters. To witness something fully is to give it space, to allow it to unfold, to let it touch you, even when it would be easier to numb. You're not rushing to explain it. You're not forcing a takeaway. You're simply saying, I see this. I feel this. I will remember. And in a world that moves as fast as ours, that alone is sacred. There is a power in the one who stays present, even when everyone else turns away. There is power in the one who sees beauty and doesn't immediately try to capture it. There is power in the one who sees suffering and refuses to trivialize it. You carry the moment by feeling it honestly, by allowing it to echo inside you, by letting it shape how you think, how you speak, how you show up tomorrow. In that way, witnessing becomes legacy work. It becomes a quiet form of stewardship, not of facts, but of emotional truth. You may not be in the photo, you may not be quoted, but you were there. And because of that, it lives on. So what is the sacred role of the witness? It's not to rescue, it's not to fix, it's to accompany, to be the silent presence beside someone's pain or someone's courage, to offer reverence where others offer judgment, to hold space for meaning when so much of the world demands speed or certainty or solutions. It's the friend who sits beside you while you fall apart and doesn't reach for a platitude. It's the stranger who watches someone stand up for justice and allows themselves to cry. It's the person who walks through the world, soft and porous, noticing what others ignore. And that work is sacred because it makes the world feel less alone, because it keeps memory alive, because it reminds us that someone was paying attention, not just to what happened, but to what it meant. You don't have to be the one who saved the day to be part of something good. You don't have to hold the spotlight to hold the story. And you don't have to act to have impact. Sometimes your job is simply to be there, to feel the weight of it, to let it move you, to carry it forward, not in headlines, but in how you live. In your stillness, something sacred is passed on. You don't have to be the one who runs into the fire. You don't have to be the one who donates the organ, feeds the hungry, rescues the trapped, or says the perfect thing in the darkest moment, but you can still be there. You can still be someone who notices, someone who holds space, someone who feels it fully, even if no one else sees you doing it. You can be the one who doesn't look away. And that matters, because in a world that rushes to the next thing, in a world that prizes reaction over reflection, performance over presence, just staying with something is a quiet act of rebellion. It's also a profound act of love. The moments we witness shape us. They settle into our nervous systems, change how we see the world, soften us to the experience of others. And in time, they influence how we respond the next time we're called to show up. Not all contribution is loud. Not all meaning is measurable. Sometimes the most human thing we can do is simply feel what a moment asks us to feel and carry it with care. So if you've ever stood on the edge of something beautiful or terrible or sacred, and all you could do was cry or listen or breathe, that counts. You were there. You stayed. You bore witness. And that's enough. It may not feel like action, but it's the soil out of which meaningful action eventually grows. Thank you for being the kind of person who still lets yourself be moved. Thank you for noticing what others miss. And thank you for staying soft, even when the world tells you to be hard. We need more people like you, not just to fix the world, but to feel it, so that the beauty, the loss, the sacrifice, and the courage do not vanish into silence. They live on because you stayed with them, and in doing so, you made them sacred. Thank you for listening all the way through. If you stayed with me to the end of this episode, I just want to say, I see that, and I appreciate it more than you know. If what you heard today resonated with you, if it stirred something you've been carrying quietly, I want to invite you into a deeper space. On Patreon, I share more personal reflections, extended audio, and tools to help you stay grounded and emotionally present in a world that often demands the opposite. It's where I go when I want to speak without rushing and connect with people who value depth as much as I do. If that sounds like something you might find meaningful, you can explore it at patreon.com/Prof. RJ Starr, PROF RJ STARR, all one word, or through the link in the show notes below. As always, thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling, for staying soft in all the right places. I'll see you next time.